This episode of Ladies Who Leap is brought to you by Pacific Business Partners. Pacific Business Partners helps women entrepreneurs replace the chaos of running a business with clarity, structure, and confident financial decisions. From bookkeeping and fractional CFO support to marketing strategy and operations, founder Angelica Wheaton and her team build the systems that let you finally step out of the day-to-day and lead. Learn more at pacificbp.com or follow them on Instagram at Pacific Business Partners. Do you ever feel like you're not good enough even though you've accomplished so much? Psychotherapist and author Kristine Jensen explains how childhood shame can follow us into adulthood, affecting our confidence, relationships, and self-worth. In this episode, you'll learn how to recognize it, heal it, and finally embrace your true value. If you've ever been your own worst critic or struggled to truly love yourself, this conversation could change the way you see yourself forever. And you know, this is a topic very near and dear to my heart because it's something that I help my clients with also. Stay tuned for Ladies Who Leap. Hi, welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Today, my guest is Kristine Jensen. She is a licensed psychotherapist in California and a certified clinical trauma professional with over 4 decades of experience. Recognized for her expertise in childhood shame, she is dedicated to empowering all individuals to heal their bruised hearts and embrace their innate dignity and worth. She is the author of Bruised, Not Broken: Healing the Shame of a Troubled Childhood. Thank you for joining us today, Kristine.
Lisa, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm really happy to have you here. You know, I usually start with asking someone about their childhood. But in your case, and I ask them about some person who inspired you to do what you do. In your case, it was some things that happened in your childhood, I believe, that inspired you to even become a psychotherapist. Yes. So can you talk about that?
Well, yes, it's kind of got a big answer. So I'll just say that I happened into this profession kind of, I don't know, I like to think the universe guided me into it because I did not sit around and think, oh, this is what I want to do. But when a colleague of mine told me about this profession, I thought to myself, well, it suits me well because I felt so screwed up. Now, I was in my 20s because I went right straight through school. I was in my 20s when I started graduate school. I was so screwed up. I thought, I'm just too embarrassed to even talk about what goes on inside of me. I don't trust that anyone could really help me. And so I thought, well, I'll go to school and I'll learn all these things and maybe I'll be able to help myself. And then the other thing was that I knew that this profession was one that in which the therapist didn't talk all that much about themselves. And that suited me also because I felt so screwed up. I didn't want anybody to know what was going on inside of me. And so that's really, I mean, it doesn't sound very exciting, but that's how I began my career. And of course, the career ended up being, I've been at it 5 decades actually, and it has been the central part of my life other than my close relationships. It's just been an amazing, amazing career.
What a journey. And I know you're saying, you know, that you were messed up, but it is what you went through as a child, which led you to leap from being a psychotherapist into being an actual author to help others.
Yes.
So
can I talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about kind of your healing the shame of a troubled childhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had been in my career for a number of decades and I retired. And this is the first time I retired because I went back to work. And so I retired and I moved locations. And so, you know, when you retire, all the things that you used to think about, your clients, whatever, you don't think about it anymore. And the part of yourself that is the professional, at least this was true for me, she kind of disappears. And so what I was left with my personal self. And so I would get up in the morning and there she'd be, and she'd be with me all day long. And she was not anywhere near as together as my professional self. And but because I wasn't thinking about a whole lot of other people and I didn't have all that to fill my mind up, I started paying more attention, quite frankly, to a deeper part of my inner world. And I knew that I had this lingering sense of not being good enough, which was so embarrassing and so frustrating because I had done a lot of work on myself. I read books, I went to see therapists, took seminars, but there it was. And so I thought to myself, I really don't want to just continue to feel badly about myself because everything on the outside of my world was really very lovely. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk with myself like I would a client, where I'm just focused in and I'm going to invite my professional self to come in and just have a little chat. And so I was sitting one morning and because I had the time to do it. So I was sitting one morning and I was having coffee and I hadn't even really set up a question in my mind. I was just kind of thinking. And here came this memory from my childhood. And it was a memory that I had gone over God knows how many times. And I thought to myself, oh God, here comes this memory. When is this thing ever going to go away? And it was a memory of being treated really badly, being very humiliated and embarrassed. And I watched this movie play out. I was about 8 or 10 years old. I watched this little memory movie play out. I saw who said what. I saw who did what. I saw how it unfolded. But then I saw something that I'd never really seen before. And what I saw this huge kind of mass of emotions that I really had not ever named. And I mean, that sounds kind of unbelievable, but I had never named it. But I saw that what it was shame. And the reason I knew that was because I just collapsed into being compliant, agreeable. I didn't say anything to the person who was hurting me. I just acted like nothing had happened. I just carried on. I even offered to be helpful. Uh, and so I thought, wow, here I am, this far along in my life, and I'd never named that feeling. And I also knew that other people in my profession had not named that feeling. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to read everything I can. And Brene Brown had come out with several of her books, maybe one or two of them at that point. And so I read all of her books. And honestly, I didn't relate to them in many ways. But when I started reading what I would call the literature that's more trauma focused, then I could start relating more. And so I read and read and read, and I kept notes. And my intention was to heal myself. And I figured out, kind of a sequence of healing exercises I could do. I figured out what kinds of skills I needed to build. And then I thought, well, gosh, maybe I should try and write a book. Now, I'd never written anything in my life. And when I told my friends I'm going to write a book, they're like, oh my God, are you serious? And they're like, Kristine, you're supposed to be retired. What are you doing thinking up another career?
But
But
see,
that's what
this
I did.
and it's very interesting because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking a lot of even clients that I get are women that have gotten to the point where they're now retired. The
Yes.
identity that they had before is
Yes.
gone away. And guess what?
Guess
Just
what?
like it happened to you, there are
Yes.
things inside. I'm going to say I'm one of them too. There are things going on in your head where you're going, okay, hold on a minute.
Yes.
There are thoughts going on in my head. I know I can be better than this. And
Yes.
shame, when I actually admitted that I didn't love myself, the first thing that came to me was shame.
Yes.
So when you say that word, it hits me. I can feel it. And I know
Uh-huh.
there's probably listeners here that can feel it too, because everything we have experienced, we do tend to internalize and blame ourselves for.
Yes.
When
Yes.
truly that's not the reality of what it was.
No, it's not.
Somebody did something to you or something happened, had nothing to do with you uh, deserving it or anything.
That's right.
It's nothing to be shameful of, and it does take a lot of healing. And you, in your profession, healed people with extreme amounts of trauma. So
Yes.
you were helping everybody else. And when you turned around, this is the leap in your life, I'm going to call it, because you turned it back onto yourself,
Yes.
realizing that you needed to do that work. And writing a book was a way to help other people going through the same thing. And there's a lot of us. I mean, Brene Brown did not now I'm going to say capitalize, but did not kind of have the whole link on shame and vulnerability and become so huge because only a couple of us were feeling that way.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
She spoke the right words at the right time and in a very broad way so that people could identify with it. You know, you were speaking, Lisa, about the clients that I worked with. That was part of why I felt ashamed that I still had this feeling of, I called it low self esteem. Later, that was what I recognized as being shame. But I felt ashamed of having that feeling because the clients that I dealt with, I mean, their lives were just awful. Their childhoods were just the worst train wrecks you could ever possibly imagine. But in learning about shame, one of the things that I learned about is it's not just what happens to you that causes you to feel this feeling that we're calling shame, but it's the things that we're missing in your childhood. So, for example, you know, um, emotional nurturing, being seen for who you are, being loved and accepted, being welcomed, having your parents be curious about you. I mean, those are the things that emotionally nurture us in a way that, you know, spinach and cornflakes and all those other things do, you know, pablum, because it can start early, you know. And of course, we blame ourselves because when our parents are unhappy, we blame ourselves because, first of all, our parents often say to us, you know, if you'd just be better, I wouldn't be so grumpy. Or, you know, the reason I'm spanking you is because I told you da 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 da. And, you know, I mean, and so the kid is encouraged to make it about themselves. And I don't think the parents are sitting around trying to be mean. They actually do believe that even though they weren't that happy before their children arrived, that somehow their children are making them unhappy. And they're young, you know, as parents, we're young. Oh my God. So this feeling that, you know, we take it on ourselves. And I really think that it's, and I know this from the research, more women fall into this than men. And if I can just speak to that for a second, because I think it's kind of
Please.
interesting.
Please,
Okay,
because
so
I did my own, I'm writing my own book about self-love, and I did find that 50% of, as a whole, they don't really have statistics, but through different various types of research, 50% of everyone doesn't love themselves. And I
uh-huh.
know that that 50% is predominantly, a lot of them are women. I mean, I've experienced men that feel the same way. Of course, they won't talk about it also. I think as women, we're opening up more about it, especially as like baby boomers, as we're getting older. I think
Yes.
we're trying starting to turn the page and focusing on ourselves. So yes, please continue.
Well, I also want to say the thing about turning the page. I think there is an imperative in each of us. You can call it what you want. You can call it life force, soul, higher being, whatever you want to call it. But there is this imperative inside of us that kind of pushes us to, to love ourselves or to be more accepting of ourselves. And then there's also a beckoning that, you know, it's like there's a better feeling you can have about yourself. So let's go to that. So there's the push and the beckoning. And the older I believe that we get, if we are not paying attention and really trying to heal this wounding that started so long ago, if we're not trying to heal that, I think we just become more and more and more unhappy. And, you know, that's kind of the little stick that drives us, right? So, why is it more women than men? Well, here's the idea, and that is, first of all, estrogen is about taking care of other people. And so, I mean, would you agree to that?
I've never heard it put that way, but when you said it, it just struck a chord with me. I'm like, because that's the nurturing part of us, and we're the ones that
Yes.
have estrogen, so would totally make sense. Yeah. It's almost
Yes.
from a what do you call it? From our the way we're made as females versus males because we have children. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And so then let's just think about men. Okay, so men, their primary hormone and also their mindset is fight and protection and things like that. And so when men are shamed, they are more likely to go into fight than they are into collapse, which is shame. And so we look at men who have had very shame ridden childhoods, and we have a number of them in the public eye right now. And we see that they are what we would call narcissists, which means that they are aggressively demeaning of other people, aggressively inconsiderate. I mean, and so men tend to be more in the narcissistic end of the shame spectrum, and females tend to be more on the collapse, go small, don't be try not to be too much trouble, just kind of go along with the program. That's the form that shame takes with women. So shame can show up in different ways. It looks different with different people, but there is a gender bias as well in terms of how it expresses itself. And if you could think about it, what feels better, to collapse and appease and try and make other people happy, or to fight and be powerful and have that cortisol going through your system and imagine that you're on, I mean, it's like you can see why, the aggressive end of shame is probably, I mean, anyway, we don't have to go into that, but I think there's a clear gender distinction.
That's very interesting because I know when I went through this exercise, which I do with clients, but I was learning it and we had to do it to each other. When
Okay.
my unconscious mind just said, I don't love myself. I whispered
Mm-hmm.
it to the woman, and then shame instantly came to me. Like I was saying, as soon as I said it, shame
Wow.
came to me. And then I also realized that it's exhausting holding it in and trying
Oh,
to be who other people wanted you to be so that they would like you.
yes.
If you because since I didn't love myself, how was anybody going to love me, or how was I going to attract people that would treat me in a respectful and loving way? So I was attracting
Yes.
even the wrong people to be
Of
friends and
course.
relationships and
Yep.
everything. It all started to make sense. And releasing that was like, oh my God, it was so freeing. I realized how exhausting that is. And so if you are, like you said, kind of the burnout, it's an indication that there's something going on in your own head and your own feelings from things that have happened in your past that you need to work on. You
Yes.
need to clear.
Yes.
And it's going to make not just more of a happy life, but literally freer,
Yes.
physically freer and freeing. So in this book, you
That's true.
have some methods, am I correct, that you share in the book to help not only identify, but also heal the wounds that led
Yes.
to this, even people that go beyond shame to self-doubt and possibly depression. What are some of those tools that you share that you can share with us?
Um, well, before I answer that, I want to comment on something you said, Lisa.
Okay.
When you said that you looked around at the relationships that you had in your life and they were reflective, when you actually started being conscious of it, they were reflective of how you felt about yourself. You know, People will say something like, well, I don't like the way he treats me, or I don't like the way she treats me, or whatever else. And an opportunity there as they speak that, to look and see, is this reflective of how I feel about myself? And it's a moment it can be a moment of inquiry. And so I just wanted to reflect on that, because it's great that you saw that, and that you saw that you were responsible for who you had brought into your life. They came in agreement of how you felt about yourself.
Well, and I'll be completely honest, it's been a process because a lot of those things I didn't want to face.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So, things that have happened in the past and something that really hit me. And I even had a person that I'm no longer friends with that said, "Oh, but you won't face yourself and what's in yourself." Um, and I can look back on it and go, yeah, that was probably the case. Still, the person shouldn't be in my life. And I'm glad that, I identified that. But yes, all these little, you get these signs until finally, I don't know, universe, God, whatever, really hits you in the face and says,
Yes.
okay, you need to do something.
Yes.
You need to take
Yes.
the time to do something.
Yes.
And that was, in your case, that was literally the leap that you took was when you said, okay, it's time now.
Yes. It's time now. And and I also was motivated to I mean, when you're a psychotherapist, you meet with people one on one, or maybe you see a couple or whatever. And I knew that there were a lot of people that needed a message so that they could identify, what was underneath the depression, what was underneath the self-esteem issues, what's underneath the social anxiety. And lots of times you can go to therapy or you can talk with your friends or whatever. They don't dial down deep enough to see that it really starts early in life with this big, I'll call it cesspool of shame, and that you have to have a way to get down into that. And of course we don't want to go there, which is what you mentioned. We don't want to go there because the whole reason that we started hiding ourselves and hiding our mistakes and trying to show a good face and do all those kinds of things is because it enabled us to stay connected to our primary caretakers when we were little kids. you know Making a mistake in my family, there was no innocent mistakes. You always had to look around and see who to blame. uh, you know there was no innocent mistakes. And so, did I want to face my mistakes? You better believe I didn't. And
No.
I thought they were reflective of just how broken I was, or bad I was, or stupid, or whatever. Right?
And which makes me think about the fact that as your profession, as my profession as a coach, why it is difficult to even get new clients. And even, someone could look at your book and go, well, because we're afraid.
Uh-huh.
Our unconscious mind, one of its prime directives is protecting you, keeping you
Yes.
safe.
Yes.
And so if you identify with the fact that uncovering the things that have happened in your childhood and facing them and releasing them in some way is going to hurt you,
Mm-hmm.
then that becomes a real obstacle to overcome. And I want people to know that you can, in the hands of someone that you feel safe with. And that's why
Yes.
you should, talk to these people that you're going to work with, either as a coach or a psychotherapist. Feel comfortable with them. And once you feel that safety net and that comfort with them,
Yes.
that means you're in the right place to be able to share
Yes. I
and heal.
absolutely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's.
And we'll be right back. Ever felt that you should be further along in your life, but something inside you keeps holding you back? I'm Lisa Andrea, founder of Ladies Who Leap Coaching, and I help women over 40 quiet that inner chatter and rebuild self-love and self-trust at the subconscious level so they can finally move forward in their life, relationships, and business. Because when a woman truly trusts and loves herself, everything changes. She chooses better opportunities, creates healthier relationships, and actually follows through on what she wants. If you're ready to leap or know a woman who is, go to ladieswholeap.com and click on the Let's Connect button to set up a call. Now let's get back to the show.
So let's go back and pick up then about what you said about some things that people can think about that are helpful. And I'm going to talk about some things that are going to sound like really kind of simple, but they're not easy. So you have to put some effort into them, right? Because the other thing is that our brains are, if we've had a lot of shame, our brains are wired to just flip us into that sort of neural pathway. And all of the behaviors and the physical sensations and everything just flood over us. And anyone who's ever had a shame attack knows exactly what I'm talking about. You feel like your stomach falls out. You just feel like you could just curl up and go away. You just wish you could vaporize. I mean, you can't think. You feel stupid. The chatter in your head is so big you can't hear what other people are saying. I mean, it's just awful, right? It's just awful. So we want people to not have to go through their lives thinking that's just normal. And a real easy an available entry point is to notice what your self-talk is. So I call it shame speak, but it's also called the inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, Lisa, I was talking to someone the other day and we were having this conversation about his inner dialogue. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, I think it's my future self." And he had a very positive attitude about it. And I was thinking, now this is going to be really interesting. And so I was very interested in what he had to say. And so I said, well, tell me some of the things it says to you. And so he started telling me some of the things that it says to him. And the more he said the phrases out loud, the quieter he got and the more introspective he got. And then he said to me, that voice never tells me I've done a good job. It never tells me that I'm good enough or hooray for you or way to go or anything like that. And he said, the more I listen to it, the more I think, it's a composite of my father and the coaches that I had in life. And so his relationship to his inner critic, his inner voice shifted. Now, many of us, and this used to be me, I used to think it was my conscience. I mean, because it seemed like that it kind of kept me in my place. It kind of told me, don't try that, Kristine, because you're just going to make a fool of yourself, or, you better keep your mouth shut here because you really don't want people to know that you don't know anything about this. And so it seemed like it was kind of on my side and giving me good directions, but it isn't, right? It was the voice, it was the messaging that kept us agreeable enough so that our parents could love us and accept us and we could have the best relationship possible with our parents. That's what it does, right? So the first thing we got to do is recognize it's not our friend, it's not our conscience, it's not our own thoughts, it's not our future self. And once we identify that, then you see we've got an entry point into asking, well, is it true? Like, Kristine, don't get on this podcast because you're just going to make a fool of yourself. Is it true that I'm going to do that? And I have some things that I can draw on that would contradict that idea. And then the other thing is, lots of times we will repeat our inner critic's voice. We'll say, like, I would say this, I would say something like, oh, how could you be so stupid when I would make a mistake? Or, no wonder that happened to you. You're just blah, blah. And it would just go on. And I just said it. I was just kind of like, stream of consciousness or whatever. And then I realized as I was researching for the book, I realized, I'm working for shame when I talk to myself like that. I'm re-injuring myself. And why would I do that? And so I stopped. I stopped repeating it. So that is one thing, identifying it and stopping repeating it. That's a very easy thing that your listeners can do. I've got a couple more. You want a couple more?
Yeah, we have time. And I'd love to give tools because we've talked a lot about what this is.
Yes.
Let's give them what you have found to be the tools with all of your research, because you are a very accomplished and impressive background, and I know you've done a lot of great research too. So yeah, let's give them a couple more tips.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I learned that if we're raised in a family that is shaming, and let me just parenthetically say that a lot of the ways in which people are raised, particularly the baby boomer generation, they are raised by parents who have learned certain parenting practices that are shaming. I mean, right down to you should be ashamed of yourself,
Yeah.
Or more subtle ones. Love withdrawal. You do something wrong, and then your mom decides she's not going to talk to you for the rest of the evening, and she acts as though she can't even stand to look at your little face. And those kinds of things are very shaming. And when they happen over and over again, then they accumulate and they become sort of what I call a shaming environment. When we are raised in a shaming environment, we do not have what is commonly called self-soothing dialogue within us. So I had clients, Lisa, that would have terrible things happen to them, and I would say, well, what did you say to yourself? And they did not have self soothing things to say. I knew I did not have self soothing things to say. And so I realized, wow, this is something you have to build. Now, parents who are, let's just say, good enough parents, they have self soothing things they tell their children. They say, it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. I'm here for you. Let's just, keep on going. I'm sorry that happened. They have all these things that are self soothing that they say to us. So we've got to learn to say them for ourselves. We've got to learn those phrases. And I advocate going around and collecting those phrases so that you can watch them on TV and see what do people say to each other or in film or whatever. We've also got to have some compassion for ourselves because that's another thing we don't get if we're raised in a shaming environment. So we've got to be able to say to ourselves that, it was just a mistake. Or, okay, that was an unfortunate decision that you made, but you learned through it. And maybe there's some apologies you need to make, but human beings make mistakes. That's how we learn, right? And so self soothing, self compassion. And then I'll just give you another one that's very available and it's very easy. And that is what we do when people give us compliments. Uh-huh. So lots of times when people give us compliments, we will do something that's very unfortunate. We'll go, oh, yeah, well, it was no big deal. Or, oh, you should have seen so and so. They did it so much better than I did. So we deflect the compliments. We need those compliments because we have been raised and we have gone about our lives in such a way we don't have necessarily an accurate picture of ourselves. We have a false picture of ourselves. And how are we going to get an accurate picture of ourselves unless we accept people's generous gift where they're reflecting something to ourselves, to us? So we need to hang on to those compliments. We need to value them. We need to say thank you. Exactly.
I'll tell you, it was something early on in my own personal growth journey that I said, okay, when somebody gives me a compliment, I am going to accept it. Because when I love giving compliments,
Uh-huh.
I love giving compliments. And when I give a compliment, it makes me feel good. So I
Yes.
realized, oh, I feel good when I give someone a compliment. I'm kind of doing them a disservice by not allowing them to give me a compliment and accepting it.
Right.
So that was something that I turned around in my head. And then when people said it to me, I said, thank you. And I'll tell you in the beginning, and everybody listening, in the beginning, it is difficult. I mean,
I
you have
know.
to think about it for a second and go, thank you, and you have to force yourself to say the words because the belief isn't all behind it in the
No,
beginning.
it's not.
So
Yes.
but it takes practice. And that's what
Yes.
it's all about. And that's how habits are
Yes.
changed. And, just keep
Yes.
doing it and keep saying thank you. And I know
Thank
that
you.
every single person listening gets a compliment.
Yes.
I know that your reality of how you are in the world is much less than how other people feel about you.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
that is something to remember too. I love
Yes.
these tips. Can you share one of the stories of when you were in practice of clients that you helped heal their emotional wounds that kind of is reminiscent a bit from what you found out, after as you're writing the book? Yeah, something that maybe
Yes.
came up as you were writing it.
Yes. I have, of course, many, many, many wonderful stories. But the one that comes to my mind that I want to share has to do with a client that I had been working with for maybe a year or so, and she had some of the worst self-talk that one can imagine. And she also had some behaviors, suicidal thoughts, uh, too many drugs, those kinds of things. And we started talking about uh, some of the stuff we've talked about today, educating her about shame, where it comes from, how to deal with her inner critic, so forth, some of the techniques. So, anyway, she's at a retirement party and she's there by herself. And she sees a couple that she knows that have been part of a social circle, but she hasn't seen them for like maybe a year. And so she thinks to herself, oh, good, there's somebody I know. So she goes over and she starts to chat with them, but they're very cold to her. And she realizes they don't want to chat with me. And so she thinks, first of all, she gets mad, it's like, well, what's wrong with them and how could they be so rude and all that. But then she just decides, I'm getting out of here. And so she goes and she gets in her car and she remembers that the last time that she was with that couple, she drank way too much. And I don't know what all, but you know how we feel sometimes if you've ever done that, which I have, and it's horrid. Anyway, so she thought, okay, well, I'm going to go home and talk to my husband. I'll feel better if I do. So on the way home, she's rehearsing what she's going to say, and it's all going to be about how awful those people are and so forth. And then she gets home and her husband's not there. So then she begins to think, I can change how I'm thinking about this. I can bring in some of the things that I've learned. I can soothe myself. And she thought, no, I'll call my sister. That'll be easier. So she tries to call her sister. Her sister's not home. She tries to call her friend. Her friend's not home. Now it's up to her. Mm-hmm. She sits down. She starts saying to herself things like, yes, you made a mistake with all that drinking. You don't do that anymore. There's nothing for you to feel ashamed about. You've changed your habits about that. And you should feel proud of yourself. And so she just started doing the kinds of things that we've been talking about, where she just started talking to herself in this comforting, self-soothing kind of way. And she could hardly wait until we talked again at our next session to tell me, because she was so proud of what she had done. And I was so proud of her. It was like, wow, here it comes. That was wonderful.
And the whole thought that her husband wasn't there, her friend wasn't there, her sister, that was all by design. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lesson and something she needed to learn, and she needed to do it, like you said, on her own.
Yes.
I love this. It's really something that I don't think people talk enough about, is self-soothing, is talking to yourself, really intentionally talking to yourself in a very positive way. And when, all of this leading to a sense of loving yourself and getting to that place and accepting the fact that you can do bad things and you can do good things and you're still the same person and you are worthy of everything that's good for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that, Lisa. That's really well said.
Yeah. This episode is supported by Pacific Business Partners. Here's what I love about Angelica and her team. They don't just hand you a spreadsheet and walk away. Their fractional CFO service is for the founder who's outgrown DIY but isn't ready to hire a full-time finance leader. Monthly strategy calls, cash flow forecasting, pricing analysis, and someone in your corner helping you make the big decisions with real numbers behind them. If you're scaling, planning a launch, or just tired of guessing what the data is telling you, visit pacificbp.com. Now, back to the show. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're an accomplished woman. You've experienced a lot.
You keep saying that.
And we're talking about self-soothing. But really, Kristine, when things are not so great in your life or something where you need help, and I love asking this question because every woman needs to understand that asking for help is just fine. Who do you go to for help for yourself?
Well, I'm fortunate in that I am married to someone who is very, very affirming and complimenting and knows all the right things to say. And I'm also blessed that I have several really good friends that I've known for a long time, and I will call on them. I can tell them what's going on. If I feel ashamed about something, I can make myself cough it up anyway, because I know, like you said, if you don't cough it up, it just eats at you. And that sucks energy out of you. And so I'm just really blessed in that I have several people on the outside of me, but I also have a much better relationship with myself. And so I can sit down and take some deep breaths and clear my mind and begin to talk with myself in a loving way. I have a loving way of talking to myself that I built. I mean, other people contributed to it, but let me just say that I intentionally worked at being able to develop this. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, and other people do too. And if you have little bits and pieces of it, well, then just enlarge it, right? Because, like my client that I told you about, sometimes you may not have people around you that you can go to provide these things for you. But if you have it within yourself, then it's always there and you don't have to pay for it.
Exactly. That's too
or
funny.
or wait for him to come home or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, I do always ask my guests for their favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation. And so I'd love for you to share that with us.
Well, I don't know that this is going to fit the bill exactly, but it's something that I wanted to share. I'm going to read it. Okay. So I get
That's
it
fine. Yeah,
right.
whatever you
Okay.
have. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the quote that I love. If one could grant a wish to improve the well being of humanity, it would be to do away with shame. The collective sigh of relief would be heard in distant galaxies. The collective sigh of relief would be heard in distant galaxies. I just love that.
Oh, it would
And
be
I'm
so
also,
true.
yeah, and I'm a great believer that shame is decreasing because, yeah, and so I feel very hopeful about that.
Yeah, I do too. And I think even our collective consciousness is raising
Yes,
as communities, as people. I was just talking to someone else and I said, all the muck kind of has been risen to the surface, so it's easier to see and easier to clear away. And
yes,
what's going to come in its place is empathy, compassion, love, and the release of any kind of shame,
I agree
personal
with you,
shame.
Lisa. I can hardly wait.
I know, I know, I know. This is going to be exciting. So,
Uh,
I'm going to say the name of the book for everyone, Bruised, Not Broken. If you can just remember that part of it, because the rest of it is healing the shame of a troubled childhood, but Bruised, Not Broken by Kristine Jensen. How can people learn more about you? Do you have a site that they can go to?
they can go to my website, Kristine Jensen, Kristine with a K, Jensen, SEN at the end. So Kristine-Jensen.com. You can get the book on Amazon. You can get it at your local bookstore. It's even in some libraries. I'm happy to say that.
Wonderful.
It's available. It's readily available.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And I'll put all the links. You guys can find it in the description and
Thank
everything so
you.
that you can do that. I'm
Thank you.
really, really thank you, Kristine, for being on and having you as a guest is really something that I think is going to enlighten and help a lot of people. So get her book, read it, digest it, and then get help if you need to.
Yes.
And be open to that because there
Yes.
are people like ourselves, like yourself, that are here. We've been called
Yes.
and helping everyone heal would make a better world. So
I agree. Thank you for this opportunity, Lisa. It's been a joy to talk with you. I
thank
really
you,
appreciate it.
Kristine. Thank you.
Mhm.
And for everyone, please like, subscribe, follow. Let me know if you'd like to be a guest and have a leap story to tell because we'd like to hear it. I want to keep doing this. So everyone have a
Great.
wonderful rest of the day and thanks for listening and watching. Thanks so much for listening to Ladies Who Leap. This episode was brought to you by Pacific Business Partners, helping women entrepreneurs build businesses with clarity, structure, and soul. If you're ready to take the next leap, learn more at pacificbp.com or follow at Pacific Business Partners on Instagram. And I'll see you in the next episode.